All right, welcome everybody. I am beside myself, just tingling with this, who I'm calling our guest, the goddess of home decor and tabletop. It's Joanna Buchanan. So, here, cheers to you, my dear, and thank you so much for being our guest today. So, for those, I'm sure everyone knows Joanna, and if you're a fan of tabletop and barware like I am, you already know her and have purchased many things from her. So I'll say a couple of things after. But first, I want to read the formal bio because I figure everybody knows, okay? So, Joanna developed an unmistakable vision for luxury, color, texture, and pattern, not only from her 20 years, you must have started when you were a mere child,
I wish.
yeah, in the fashion retail business, oh, same as me, but also through her Hong Kong childhood, adult years in Europe. I went to school in Switzerland, and extensive travel throughout India. She believes that by scouring the world for experts, she is producing in the best possible countries for her collection. She utilizes their specific expertise. She is proud to work with like minded small businesses in China, India, and the Philippines, working with dedicated artisans and aligning on the brand's goals and ethics. These relationships are key to the success of Joanna's vision. Joanna's line of luxe seasonal accessories, holiday decor, and gifts was born from her mother's love of holiday decorating. I want to hear more about that. And a dig through her great grandmother's vintage collection of ornaments stashed in her parents' home in the English countryside. Inspired by these finds, she envisioned a new take on classic holiday decor, an unexpected twist on conventional ornaments. I love that. She has transformed the holiday season by adding a level of vintage sophistication and glamour that has been missing from the marketplace, I'll say. Joanna's home's in New York City. We were just discussing that we both have that in common. She's in Connecticut. I'm in the Garden State where we are now, which she shares with her husband and two children, showcases treasures picked up during her years of traveling. They epitomize her ability to curate modern colors, chic graphic patterns, and eclectic home furnishings. Her garden is a huge inspiration for the natural elements in her work. So cheers to
Yes.
your background and to your family. My ancestors were from Lambeth in London.
Oh
Where's your
yeah.
yeah? Where's your family?
Well, my father was actually Scottish, hence the Buchanan name.
Okay.
And then my mother is American, and she grew up in the Far East as well. And it was her great grandfather went out to the Philippines to start the U.S. Postal Service. So my maternal side is very much Far East based. I was born in Manila as well, and
Oh,
then we moved to Hong Kong. So yeah, I'm a bit of a hybrid.
oh wow! I should say like Churchill.
Yeah.
So you're very cosmopolitan, I say the least. But I have to say, just to start off, is that when I discovered you, I felt like it was like the other half of my brain or my heart in some ways. So this is one of my books, The Art of the Garnish. And then if my trusted Marty Scorsese can like zoom in, I want to be able to show you one of my, so The Art of the Garnish was all these like fun things. But if
Oh
you
my
can
gosh,
see here,
I can. That's amazing.
I know. So I used in a lot of the garnishes were my brooches and pins and things that I had or that were my mother's or grandmother's and so on. So when
Yeah.
I found you and then you had all of these bees and picks and things that were going with it, I was like, this is unbelievable to me that this woman can do this. It was all about the sparkles and the glamour and all of that. So for folks here, you know how much I love tablescapes and doing the design. So that was the other thing. So the table today, we'll just take a minute before we get, I just can't wait for this party to get started. But
No, it's fabulous.
it's as if Joanna was here. So we set the table for Valentine's.
Oh,
We wanted to have this before, even though it's Super Bowl Sunday. We're teasing that it's Super Table Day. But
yes.
I have purchased for a shower gift. My mother and I, we both got my dear friend's daughter the shells that you have with the like diamonds and the pearls on it. We got those.
Yes.
as napkin rings. And then I love exotic birds, the flamingos or peacocks. So that's what these are here that you can see. So it's just
The
so,
table looks amazing.
all coming from you. I'm going to
I
replay
know,
this
it looks so
over.
good. And now you need to leave it up for Valentine's Day, right?
I'm going to replay that over and over. The carriage was really funny. That's another whole story, and Bill painted it for me from the gold. So I loved your background with the sparkles and the glamour and all that going on. So that is background, and like I said, people must know you. But if I asked your friends to describe you, what would they say? Like, what is your persona?
I think it's interesting. Sometimes I hear people talking about me, and they someone who worked with me that didn't know me well said I was the person that always had a smile. Um, and my husband would say I'm always an optimist and I'm a very, very positive person. So I tend not to, I try not to dwell on, you know, things that aren't so great. They happen, you live with them. But I think he thinks it's my stiff upper lip from being English that I
Mm.
just I just, keep calm and carry on kind of thing. So I think that's what they would say.
I
I
just
think they would say I'm very loyal. And I also think they would say that I put a lot of effort into life. I don't wait for things to happen to me. I go
mm,
out, I make friendships, I keep friendships, I show love. And you put in what you get out what you put in. So I put in a lot.
100%. I totally agree. Even, bringing it to the tabletop or the, bar scapes that I call them, is that so often people will say, "Oh, do you do that for your table all the time?" And I say, "Yes." And then they seem so surprised. I said, "But if you love somebody, you're going to go the extra, effort." Did you get your love of entertaining from you as an adult, or was that something, like you say, that was your family's?
My parents were both big hosts. They love to entertain. And I think luckily I married someone who likes to have parties as well. So we definitely love to host. We do a kind of mix of more formal, I guess, entertaining more during the winter time, when we're inside. And then in the summer we are outside, and it's a lot more casual. However, I will say I got a House Beautiful post on my Instagram this morning, and it was questioning paper plates versus china. And I never comment on posts usually, but I had to comment. I was like, paper is terrible, you never use paper plates. So even in my mind, casual, it's never paper.
Yeah, I'm with you. I remember when I was starting to buy more and more of the, china for the table, and my husband said, "But we have our wedding china. What do we need more?" And one of my clients, he was looking for some support from her, and she said, "I have a whole room filled with just plates for
Exactly.
different for different occasions." So yes, the more the merrier. And for me, I'm rather aghast sometimes when I learn that younger folks don't want the china. So for me, that's a boon because I can find them at vintage shops or flea markets or things, in addition to buying new. But
Yeah.
I
I
am.
mean, I hope my children will understand and continue with certain standards that I do set. We never eat without a placemat.
Mhm.
And they know if I come into the kitchen and they're eating without a placemat, the first thing I'm going to do is give them a placemat. But they're still young, so that they haven't formed their own hosting
Right,
concepts yet.
right.
However, they both do love to host, and my son is actually hosting a Super Bowl party today, and that's all of his own initiative. And they like to throw parties too. I think there's something lovely, that people get nervous about hosting. They feel like it is a lot of work, and it is. But what else are you doing? How else are you connecting with people? Someone has to do it. And I'm glad that actually I don't know if they'll be putting out, beautiful china, but they certainly like to throw a party.
No,
It's a
no.
start.
What I've seen, we don't have our own children, but from my extended family or, friends with children, they like the tradition. So I think when you
Yes.
that, they continue on. And yes, it's work, but it's also showing your love. I mean, I do know people that, since the rise of social media, or even being at some people's homes, their table setting in some ways seems a little performative for me. I can sense when there's authenticity to it, and I think it's just fun. So why
Right.
not, right? Why not, put it out and put out some fun things? It's a way to celebrate life, I think. I saw, just going back to your products, that you did have
Yeah.
some Super Bowl things that people were able to purchase. So people probably think that's such a male thing, whereas tabletops are more female. Do you find there's a gender bias there?
Well, it's interesting. When I first started, I first started with Christmas ornaments, and then I moved pretty quickly
I
into the
see.
tabletop and the barware. And I remember meeting with, maybe it was a buyer from Neiman Marcus at the time. It was at the very beginning. And I was showing her the cocktail picks and the wine charms and all the sparkle and all the color. And she said, "You know what, Joanna? No one is doing barware in this way. It's very masculine, it's very male, and it's very
Mm.
neutral, and it's kind of wood and heavy. And so I do think there is a bias to people thinking that barware is a male kind of
Yeah, yeah.
area. But I will say we do have a lot of male customers now. And I think, there are people that enjoy making a martini for their wife on a Friday night or whatever. And why not make it beautiful for her or partner or whatever? I think people see in what we do just a fun and a lightness to it. And it just, if you can use something, if you need something, why not use something beautiful rather than just a toothpick? Like an olive doesn't need.
I love that you say that. It's what I say to my husband oftentimes. It's not just making the drink, it's the process of it.
Yeah.
So whether it's setting the table or not, it just elevates, I think all of us. And yes, having something beautiful around. Everyone's attracted to beautiful things, whether it's the flower or the sky or whatever. So maybe you can take us on a little bit of your journey, because you say that your gardens and your travels inspire you. So tell us first a little bit about your gardens and how that imbues your designs.
Well, I think, obviously I'm in my studio now, which is, windows on all sides. So I'm looking out onto the garden, and I feel, having lived in cities for such a long time, there was something about getting a little bit older and wanting to be closer to nature.
Mm.
And when we found this house, my husband and I both just fell in love with it. The garden was a disaster. No landscaper would even begin to tackle it, because it was so bad, because it had been really unkept for many, many years. But there is something so rewarding
Mm.
about planting, seeing things grow, transplanting, creating atmosphere,
Mm.
creating moments of beauty. It is something that I did when I was younger in my parents' garden, because neither of them in England, neither of them were big gardeners. So I had a lot of time during the summers to, plant beds and dig and, create there. But then I went away to London, to New York, and then I didn't have a garden. And so it's amazing to be back here, or, in a place where I can really create. And I feel like the colors in nature are what are endlessly inspiring to me. I literally walk outside almost every day, even in the winter when it's, white and green. And there's something new to see. There's some new shape. There's some new color combination. So I just find it very therapeutic. And it's where I truly lose track of time and
Mm.
lose track of any concerns. I'm in the mud or digging and weed. I love the grunt work as well.
Oh, good. That's good. I belong to, I'm a garden designer also. And so we just had our big symposium last week, the Plantorama, and Edwina von Gaal was the keynote speaker. And she said, nature doesn't do ugly. So you're right.
Correct.
You just look there and you see, all of that kind of inspiration. So, and then, So tell us a little bit about the career side then. Like how did you were always designing products, or how did that come
Yeah,
about?
I had a very kind of corporate life before I started the business. I was in corporate sort of my first job was with Marks and Spencer in London.
Oh,
And then I came to the States and I was product manager, which is kind of hybrid design for Saks Fifth Avenue. And then I went to work for Banana Republic as an accessory designer, and then hopped over to Loft, which is owned by Ann Taylor, designed accessories there for a bit. And then I lost my job, and I don't know what possessed me because I was not an entrepreneur in my mind ever. I always liked having a team of helpers. But I think it was the fact that we were thinking of moving to Connecticut. I
mm,
think it was you reach a point where you do want to design what you really love and believe in, and not what the brand
yeah,
on your email tells you have to design. So it's an ego thing of just wanting to put your vision out into the world, not someone else's. And it was so freeing, and it is still so freeing to
yeah,
answer to nobody from a
yeah.
design point of view but
For
yourself.
sure, for sure. I mean, that's probably a dream that most people have, but then
It
they have
is.
to have the bank account to be able to go with it to get them to go. I mean, a lot of businesses started during the pandemic because they had the time or they were forced into it. But in your case, it sounds like you had maybe a little bit of that comfort level and then be able to pursue it. Is that?
Yes, I mean, the business started 2014.
Oh,
um and I think, again, there's that, it's a blessing not to have anyone to answer to, but it's also very scary when you
yeah,
start. Is anyone going to like what I like?
right,
Is
right.
anyone going to like my designs? And then that's only a tiny piece of it. The rest of it is, can I actually run a business? How do I get the production? How do I get a
Yeah,
warehouse? How do I deal with all the technology that you have to deal with these days being a brand? But you go into it with a positive attitude of, I can figure it out, it can't be impossible. And sometimes it takes a bit longer, because I'm not techie. But the minute you find that you have a customer, that's the biggest excitement,
no,
because you're
that's
like, now I people like what I do, and that's the hugest thing that keeps you going.
I bet, so rewarding. Oh, I'm your biggest fan for sure. Did you ever think that you would then have bricks and mortar, or was it always online that you?
It's always been online, and I think, for the moment, the brick and mortar piece of it is going to come from our wholesale partners. We just started with a showroom, about 7 months ago, and their express purpose is to get us into more stores, physical stores in the US, which is exciting. Um, I'm not sure I could pinpoint exactly where I would want the brick and mortar to be,
Mm,
where there's consistently enough traffic year round to
mm,
warrant having a store. So it's definitely something that you dream about or daydream about and noodle, but it's not an immediate action point for me
mm.
right now.
I
Um,
understand. Yeah, people do pop-ups more and more.
Yes. And we're actually talking to someone quite exciting about doing a pop up. It's terrifying, but it's not till December of this year. So yes,
Oh,
a pop up could be something, that's, I'm not going to say who, but it's on the horizon. Yes.
all right, we'll have to stay tuned, and then I'll gently prod you as we go along
Yes,
to
you'll
be
find
able.
out. Trust me, the world will know if we pull this off.
I mean, it's so exciting and to be recognized so much. I mean, I put in the announcement for this how Town and Country has cited you and, in so many, press things. So kudos to you for building that customer base. And you just seem so customer oriented too. I mean, to purchase things, folks, it's so easy, sneezy, and there's so much to be able to purchase there. So a lot of times when you buy online, to be frank, I mean, anymore, I worry about you give your credit card to someone and who knows what foreign shores it goes to. Where
Yeah.
you right away. There was somebody that responded and, was extremely helpful. So I felt like there was like a concierge there, kind of like
Well,
help.
that's what, it's so funny you say that, because it is something that it's so important that people still realize they're dealing with people,
Yeah,
because it can be very much the ether of, yeah, you put your credit card in and you cross your fingers.
yeah,
And so much of what I want to help customers with is a personal service, or, people will email in and say, I have this china, or what would you suggest? Or I've just
right.
moved house and I don't know where to start. And those are the things that, immediately the team forward them to me, because I love doing things like that. That's the fun bit.
I
Um,
love it. Oh, that was so fantastic. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the process. I mean, I love in preparation for this, but also because I could like watch your videos. I could listen to you read what used to be a phone book with your lovely accent.
Thank you.
But your process, like you do what I do also, which is I think combining vintage things you have with then the things that you design. So
Yeah.
tell us about that. And then how do you design? Like, so you're inspired by the garden. Do you go in and start drawing something or?
Yes, I design a lot in my head, actually. Before I actually put pen to paper, I I'm thinking about things that may be missing in the collection. Or I just recently, I was in London meeting with Harrods, and I went to a store that just started stocking us, and they had some china that I thought, oh, you know what? I don't have a napkin ring that I would put with that. What would I put with that? So I'm designing a little bit more around need, or um, existing china at the moment, which is kind of interesting because you can't lose who you
Mm.
are. But at the same time, if I see a really beautiful piece of china, then I'm like, oh my God, what would I put with that? So it's kind of an interesting take on things.
Oh, it
Um,
is so interesting. I have to interject that
yeah,
I don't know, I think it was Halloween, but you get these like almost like institutionalized colors in your head for holidays. So, and
right.
I know you don't like red, but it's Valentine's Day, so we have some
Yeah.
of that. But there was orange for Halloween, but then you showed blue plates with orange. And
Yes.
so when I did that, I said, this is thanks to Joanna. But look, you can
Oh,
mix things up. And
yeah. Yes, I think it still has to be beautiful no matter what you're doing, regardless of the holiday.
right, right.
But then from design, I also design a lot from my head. I always think back to the coral placemats that we have in the collection, and I didn't reference coral on the internet or in any of my books. I just sketched from my memory.
Mm.
And what was really interesting is that people who see that particular cobalt and white one now, they're like, oh, it's kind of a hybrid of a Matisse and a piece of coral. And again, like, that's all my travels and all my, trawling through art galleries or whatever. It all just sort of distills into your brain, and then it kind of comes out when you're sketching, or when you're thinking of colors, or when you're trying to evoke a mood.
Mm.
So I do the final step is pen to paper and Pantones and color references and all that kind of thing. But the first steps are usually very conceptual and very much kind of, what is the collection missing? Where are destinations that I could tap into? And it's just a big melting pot, I think, of everything I've ever seen.
Wow.
Um,
Do you
so
have
that's the fun
do you
bit.
have a favorite creation? I mean, I know you
Ooh,
like capes. You have to tell me how that's done. But do you have a
yeah.
favorite creation?
Well, it's interesting to me that our bestsellers now are still the best. The bestsellers that we had when we started are still our bestsellers now.
Oh wow.
So when I think back to how it all started, and I started, as I said, with Christmas ornaments, and I expressly was inspired by jeweled vintage brooches that I'd seen in the V&A and various exhibitions. And there wasn't a Santa, and at that point, there wasn't a Santa, there wasn't a snowman. It was very unusual for people to look at the collection. They were sort of surprised not to see the traditional kind of Christmas icons. I think that sort of starting point for the brand is something that is probably my favorite design because it kind of set us on a path of not being traditional and
Mm,
not being expected. And I think that's what I try to keep in the collection as it grows, is a little bit of a twist, a little bit unexpected. And even if maybe some of the pieces may be a little bit more traditional, when I put them together, I try and put them together in a way that might surprise you, like blue and orange, for example. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You want to delight your customers and your guests, so I could understand that. Do you? So what you said you love capes so much? So how did that come about? And
Well, that's interesting because it is indigenous to the Philippines,
uh,
and having spent so much time there growing up, everything we had was capis, but in a very different way. It was mostly translucent. Um, if you think of those sort of capice candle holders that you can get, they're in the shape of a flower or lights, or what else did we had a lot of capice Christmas ornaments. And then when I started trying to think of categories that I was interested in exploring, and I was looking at things that people weren't doing, because that's always my goal, is to not bring something into the world that's already been done, because what's
yeah.
the point? If someone else is doing a lacquer tray, then let them do it. They'll probably do it better than me. But no one was doing capice trays. No one was doing capice trays, and no one was doing them in the way that I wanted to do them, which was taking concepts from fashion, which was tie dye and dip dye and sort of textile trends, and put them onto a tray, which is then hand pieced and hand painted. I mean, I couldn't have made it more difficult for anyone, myself or the factory. But they are absolutely beautiful, and they continue to be great sellers. So I'm glad I sort of drove everyone crazy at the beginning, saying, no, 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 it needs to be
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this.
But that's where your optimism and your smile come in, because you figure you can get to that end game. I think the
I
goalpost
knew I could. I just didn't
that
know
you
how
could
long
do.
it was going to take, or if anyone would kill me before I'd got there, because they were so annoyed with my
Right.
designs. But yeah, we got there.
How do you ensure the quality? I mean, if they're made not
So
next to your home.
yeah, I know. We work with, in some cases, we work with agents who, in certain countries, who will QC the product. And we do that in India and in the Philippines. And then in China, I do have an agent there as well. But I'm also working with factories who know me and know the brand. And I've known them for longer than the brand has been alive. So I know that they are producing to the level that is Joanna
Yeah, yeah,
Buchanan. And
yeah.
of course we do have issues. You know, every brand is going to have issues. And the way I keep a really close eye on it, because again, that's the most important thing, is that once you've got a customer, they're delighted with what they've received and they come back. I have all the returns sent to my studio, and I go through every single one. And if there's any quality issue, then I can take it up immediately with the factory and immediately nip something in the bud. So I'm absolutely maniacal about that, because that is what the collection and the brand
Yeah.
is built on. It
And
has to be beautiful.
and your name is on it, so I mean, that
Exactly.
really means something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so I'll ask you one more about the product, and I have a
Yeah.
couple other things real quick. So do you have some trends or forecasts for this coming year? I mean, for Valentine's Day, we wanted to do this, but so folks can go to your website and see, all the great Valentine's things. But looking ahead, what do you forecast?
Looking ahead, it's funny. I was at the gym this morning, and that's when I do some weird design thinking as well. And I was thinking about some darker platings and some more moody product. We're always very bright and colorful, and we tend to be very shiny. But I had a meeting in London with a customer who we have not kind of sealed the deal with yet, but they are interested in doing some custom pieces. And as I was showing them, I was saying, you're not going to like this because it's too shiny. And I said, but if we change the plating, then it would be something your customer would appreciate. So I was thinking about, how do I still keep Joanna Buchanan's essence, but do something that's a little less, literally shiny.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and less sparkly, but still has the richness and the color to it. So I have a lot. I actually had a very good thinking session this morning.
I,
And I've got a lot of ideas of some things I'd like to bring in for the end of the year, for the holiday season, which is obviously our biggest time.
yeah, yeah.
More darker jewel tones. I have actually, there's a set of bug clips that we do, which kind of to me is the starting point of it. It's that there's sort of darker stones and a more
Right, right.
antique
Oh,
plating.
I love that.
So I'm thinking things like that. And I don't follow trends. I tend to do this and be like, no, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
know. I go with what my instincts are telling me. I go
Yeah,
with what I'm feeling.
yeah.
And
Well, that's
an
because
editor,
you're
sorry,
a
go ahead.
you're the trendsetter, so that's
So
why.
I'm told, I couldn't believe it. Some people we just came off a bunch of trade shows, and some people were telling me that our TikToks, they worked for a big corporate company in home, and they were saying that our TikToks, out of the 10 trend TikToks that they team showed the rest of the company, 3 of them were ours. I couldn't believe it. I was like, but we are
See?
so bad at TikTok.
No, I want to put it up. I mean, your so I can tell people that your TikTok is the same as your
Yes, it is.
Instagram. So it's the at Joanna Buchanan official. But I love your TikToks. They're great.
Thank
They're,
you.
they're really great. And for people, you could follow along on the Instagram, and then also, on Facebook. People know that. But well, good for you. See, you are a trendsetter. That's what I'm trying.
But you know what it is, I met with someone amazing very, very early on when I started the business. She really helped me. She is the editor of Connecticut Cottages and Gardens, and she gave us our first photo shoot. And I said to her something about being consumed with doubt and riddled with fear, because it was right at the beginning. And she said, Joanna, just put the blinkers on and stay in your lane. And that is what I do. And I really don't look at what my competitors are doing until someone says, oh, by the way, isn't that what you've, and I'm like, oh yes, it is. But I really try to design from my mind, from my soul and my heart. And I'm not looking to be on trend, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's why I said you're the trendsetter. That's why I felt like it was like a half of my brain or half of my heart when I saw it, because you have an authenticity and a genuineness that's it's just so exuberant, and it comes across that way. So in that, so one of my questions I always ask is, what advice would you give to a young woman that's coming up in your field or your work? What to do, like to go to school for it, to follow instinct, what would you
I
say to
think
people?
you definitely have to have both sides of the brain functioning really well. I think you obviously have to have a point of view that is unique, I think, and a point of view that is distinctive, that you can articulate and stand out in a marketplace that is very full.
Mhm.
Um, and I do think you have to have a really good grasp of business.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
uh, just understanding the math of it, understanding the dynamics of how those relationships work, understanding risk is a huge part of having a business.
mm,
Um, Tolerance for risk is also important,
yeah,
but it's understanding at what point, I mean, for example, there are certain customers that we have had to just kind of put on pause because, if their business isn't great, then our business is not going to be great.
mm,
So you are on high alert pretty much all the time to everything that's happening. We're just, dealing with tariffs right now. Like, we weren't
yeah,
planning for that. So you've got to love it. You've got to believe that what you're
mm,
doing is where you should be
yeah.
without any shadow of a doubt. And then you'll be okay.
So when it takes this 100% commitment, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
But also, then how do you balance your family, your work, your community? How do you?
It's not easy. It is definitely not easy. Particularly in the earlier years where it all just felt so shaky, um, because we were still building the business, and still understanding if it really was viable, as a long-term option. And
Mm,
I sleep better now than I did 3 years ago. But my family have always grown up, well, my kids have pretty much known me now for most of their life as
Mm,
being a business owner. And I think whilst they see how difficult it is, you know, emotionally and, you know, just from a time perspective,
mm,
they also understand that it gives me a huge amount of freedom to be there for them.
mm,
So I
mm.
go to all of their basketball games, all of their lacrosse games. You know,
Great.
there's nothing that I set my own agenda, so I can be there for them, and I think they see the trade-off.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
So
you
that's why
know,
you're so inspiring, not just for your clients and your customers, but your own family. I mean, they must see that you're inspiring them because you're doing something that's so rewarding and fulfilling.
well, you know, it's funny. My daughter is 16, and right before Christmas, we got an email from Gucci Westman to do some to help with her Christmas tabletop and to send her some of our pieces in um, and then what's the word I'm looking for? And then receive some of her pieces back,
Okay.
her amazing makeup. And my daughter sort of looked at me, just eyes open and wide. She was like, "Oh my God, Mom, this is so cool!" And you know, for her, that was like the absolute ultimate. Seal of approval for
Right.
me because Gucci Westman wanted to use our pieces and she
My
got free
mother
makeup in
did
return.
this. My mother got this for me. We're like, how cool
Exactly.
is
And it
that?
was really about getting the free makeup from her, you know.
Yeah.
That was just, she was like, this is
Let's
amazing.
get down, get down to brass tacks here for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. So I have like three last things. I know this is like so much I could keep talking to you all afternoon. So a couple things. One, I have to ask because as the author of The Art of the Garnish, do you have a favorite cocktail or favorite drink?
You know, I'm very traditional. I love a gin and tonic.
Okay.
Um, and I think that's just the Brit in me. I have moved on to Negronis though. A friend of mine
Ah,
makes a very good one, and I do love those. And I
I
think your tastes change a little bit, so now that's my treat. Yeah.
I like that too. And my husband Bill, he loves them too. And there's so many varieties. You could put tequila in it, or you know, sub out the gin, for it. So Anthony Bourdain was a big promoter, of that too. So
Yeah.
they are very, very delicious. So in talking to you just now, I had a couple of thoughts. Like one, um, like it would be, you don't have to answer now. So I'm
Okay.
just spitballing here, but somewhere along the way that you could do not only collaborations with other playmaker. I mean, I go to the tabletop show every year in Lenox or this that, but you could do
Yeah.
collaborations with them. Would be fun, and then you could have a sort of a fun contest, whether it turns into a TikTok show or a premiere show, but like a tabletop show, like how to have people on that make great tabletop designs, and
Oh,
then Joanna, then you come in and I
well,
don't like competition, but
it's
something.
funny you say that. I was told that Martha Stewart was supposed to be doing some kind of tabletop competition show. And that was a while ago, and I have not searched further to see if she
No,
did or she didn't.
no.
I'm sensing she didn't because I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, but it does sound like a really good idea. It'd be so fun.
I think it was good. She had a kind of a garden show that she was on that was similar to that, but she's not doing that now,
Right.
documentary wise. But I think that would be fun. And then I think you
Those-
need to do a book.
I love it. In my free time.
Oh, well, in your free time. So, well, I'll help you write it. That'll be great.
Okay.
But I think you definitely need, to think about like doing that. A coffee table book. It could be
Yes.
a tabletop book. So that's fun. Very
Well,
fun.
it's so funny. We I one of the things I love so much about doing this is the final photography that we do.
Uh,
That to me is also an incredibly creative time and process, and I absolutely love it. And people always say, you know, our photography is just, and I believe it. There's some of the images that we've taken over the years are so beautiful. I never want to let them go, and I'm like almost like keeping the pieces in the collection just because I love the photo so much.
right.
Um, but I mean, we have so much beautiful photography. It would be fabulous to use even some of that in a book, you know?
Well, there you go. I just
Yeah.
think any kind of book. I just your work is so beautiful. I love your things. You know, I was showing my hairdresser the other day and they're like, "Oh my God, it's like table jewelry. We love it. We love
Wait
it."
till you hear what we're doing next. I'm working on, this is breaking news. I'm working on some hair accessories.
Oh, that is just we've broken so much news here, so I have to tell you, like, I won't go into detail, but there was a woman who was, you know, the etiquette expert, Mariah Grummett. She broke news about a book, and then we had Janet Mavak, the jewelry designer, and she broke news about a book that she was doing with
Yeah.
Neil Bachman in her gardens. And so to hear this, that you have hair accessories, that
Yes.
is going to be huge, especially with your TikTok followers.
I know. It's going to be so fun. I can't wait.
Oh,
Um,
I need a new hairstyle to be
well, when
able
you
to.
said hairdresser, I thought, okay, well, that's someone who would be excited about this.
They're going to be thrilled for sure. So that is a great. All right, I see how inspiring you are. I'm already like thinking of things from my communication and PR days that would like
There
work.
you go.
So, unfortunately, we have to go. We don't have to go, but it's already been time. And I know people like yourself, you have other things. And today we wanted to do it before Valentine's Day so that you could
Which
see.
is fun. You.
Yeah, it's so much fun and so much love goes into your products. And I'm so, so very grateful that you agreed to talk to us and to our viewers. And
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on and an honor to be asked. So thank you.
okay, thank you so much. So we'll be posting this in a little bit, but God bless you and thank you so much.
Fabulous.
Continued success.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Bye bye, Joanna.
Bye. Bye.